Okay, now this is probably inadvisable. And I've had a little bit to drink. It's Friday. I drink on the weekends at the moment, and it could be a factor. First of all, let me just say that in general, I like retarded people. You're not supposed to call them retarded anymore, but by the old 49-year-old uh, lexicon, it means a certain thing, and I like those people. Now, Quintica will notice probably that this relates to something that you said, Quintica. And, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because I don't want to bother you, but this is something that already came up. So I'm going to discuss it separate from you or what you might think about it, right? But I acknowledge you brought it up, and it's the idea you said that I was socially retarded. Now, I find that interesting and not something I want to deny necessarily. But I have a few ideas about it. Now, I think when we're young, or specifically when I was younger, you have some anxieties about. Okay, well, let me put it this way. I noticed for years people would argue, oh, you must be fun at parties, or fun, oh, that's fun at parties. When they were insulting you, they would go to this, whether you're fun at a party, like you're supposed to be fun at a party, and you're trying to have fun, but that's different. You're supposed to be fun for other people. Okay. And there's truth to that. Yeah, if you're at a party, it's part of the fun is to be fun for other people, right? But the fact that people would use this sort of thing was, I mean, it sort of clicked as, a feature of, like, uh, you're supposed to fit into your social group and pressure that is the right thing. Now, I felt that when I was younger, but I resisted it because it just didn't seem worth, the trouble. But then sometimes I thought, hey, I should worry about that. And then sometimes I don't have time for that. Because, I've always been project oriented. Like when I was really young, I'd work on poems. I wanted to write a poem. I was thinking about a poem. And, you know, when I had some free time, there was something that I wanted to do as well as be with my friends and whatnot. So, as I went into high school, I got into architecture. I was working on some architectural, landscaping and buildings. Come time for me to have some free time, I'm like, I'm going to work on that architectural drawing. And then I picked up programming around 13, 14, and I always had a program ever since then that I wanted to work on. So there's competition. But then you have this anxiety and this pressure and the fact that, oh, you do want to be social. Now, this kind of back and forth, it continued throughout my life. And sometimes I realized, hey, I want to be more social. I need to spend more time with friends. And then I'd be like, I don't need that, da da da. It would, go in a biorhythm. Um, Now, the idea of being socially retarded, what does retarded really mean? If you separate any, you know, kind of bigoted ideas from it. It means that you're slow in some progression, like, a slow learner has a retarded, learning curve. It means it's slow. Now, oddly enough, you could have a retarded height curve, right? So you're retarded in your height growth. And so it doesn't, all the other kids are growing up taller and you're just going like this. And then you could end up where everybody else ends up. That would still be retarded because it was slower, even if it caught up. Obviously, we generally think of it as slower and you never catch up. So, talking about retarded socially means that there's some sort of growth curve, normal, average, is something kind of a person is supposed to follow, and you're below that. You're not as social. I don't know about that because I think a lot of people consider themselves as social as the hypersocial people. They kind of fantasy world themselves into that. So it's probably more like average, but I'd be totally happy with it to be below average because I don't see any moral need and never have for social interaction. I have seen that as a human person, of course, you want social interaction. And I appreciate my friends and spending times on friends paid back. But anyway, none of that is the point of this video. Here's what I wanted to talk about. The cusp of my interaction with this issue of being socially retarded and whether you should be more social or less social was when I separated from my first marriage. Um, I decided to just focus on being a dad, single dad. And I I didn't like ignore my social commitments, but I mean, commitments. I didn't have social commitments, but I didn't ignore my friends. But I also didn't focus on that or expanding that, or in many cases I cut down on time like that, and I made a conscious decision that I just raised my two daughters, and I had joint custody, which was a mistake, but that's another subject. Um, and for 6 months, that's what I did. I went to work. I came home. I took the girls. I walked them to the park every day and picked them up and this and that and the other thing. And on Sunday for longer than the 6 months, I made Sunday breakfast, and I went down with the girls to get a newspaper and whatnot, and then I let the girls go down with the dog and get a newspaper, and everybody loved them down there when they did that in Honolulu on the Big Island. And but for 6 months, that's what I did. And then I realized, look, it didn't seem that great to be a couple girls with a dad that didn't spend any time with any friends. And the real point was because, you know, me having friends and spending time with friends that have kids is how other kids meet kids, outside of the school and institutional environment and whatnot. And so it seemed it seemed to me like, yeah, this isn't working out. And also, I realized that one of the reasons for that is me ignoring, the fact that yes, I want social contact sometimes. I want time to do my projects, whatever they are. Writing a book, making a song, right? Because I love music, Quintica, right? Anyway, so I'm not very social per se. Probably socially retarded, eh, abnormal is more like it. Because retarded implies that you're just slow on a curve you're trying to go along. And I'm like, no, I'll never be on that curve. I'm like over here, right? And certain people like to interact with me. Like, in order to be plugged into the mainstream, I need a friend that's on the odd curve of the mainstream that likes to doop 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 check in with the weird people, and that's my connection, right? I'm in the weird people. So you want to call that retarded? That'd be fine. But whatever. Um. So anyway, at that point, I was like, "Fuck it, I don't care." One time in college, in my dorm, I put like big, thick tape, a couple inches across, like it was a crime scene. I didn't write crime scene or anything, but it was just to block my door. Like I don't want anything to do with anyone, and it's not particularly normal. Um, but anyway, but I also like people, and I go through very social stages. So after that 6 months, I went through one because I consciously realized, wait a second, this isn't particularly healthy for, I don't want to. It's fine for 6 months. I didn't feel guilty or bad or anything. I'm just saying, look, like, if this is going to be another 8 years, raising the girls and it's just us, that's too isolated, So I started to socialize. Like, I like pool, so I joined the pool league and I tried to start meeting women through my social network and also through online networks, which at the time was still not that big of a deal, but was starting to be. And I happened to be on a site where you could write quizzes that was related to that. So I started to be open to that. I made a lot of friends from the pool league. I met the woman that is now my wife. We had a pool kind of night, practice night at our house for a couple years. And of course, at that point, I was criticized for being too social, you know, for having drinks. Which ironically, I never drunk at all until like I was 35, other than at a wedding or a funeral. But fair enough. If you get really social, you can be criticized for it. If you aren't social, you could be criticized for it. I think both of those are fair. Um, you know, fair. But but about a year before my daughter died, I'd already realized that, what? I'd had a problem. I ended up marrying my girlfriend from before then, but, we had a period where we split up. I forget if I've ever said this. My girlfriend that I'd had, that is now my wife, my lovely wife, um, we've known each other and been together for about 10 years now. about whatever it was, see, 5 years ago, when my daughter died, we split up for, it's very ominaceous that we split up for about 6 months. And it was during that 6 months that my youngest daughter died of a methadone overdose. So that's was really sad, and it's all related to the things that were going on, and yet not. That's not by far the primary thing, but in a way, it was a window because what happened was not directly involving my lovely wife here. It did directly involve her because she was the mom. She spent more time and did more things and more activities, like, for example, with my daughter that passed away without me doing things that they were doing, um, than my, you know, first ex marriage wife. Uh, so that's a direct involvement. But the thing is, since we split up, there was also a separation. So I don't know. It's a very weird thing. That's a whole nother subject. But it's relevant to this social retardation thing because I was being very social. Um, I was criticized for being social. I was told my being very social was related, my socializing and having, I had invited people over to practice pool before league night, and that went on long enough that we started having bands, and it got loud, and every Tuesday, and I was criticized that was, it's a Tuesday night. I made the girls go to sleep for school. Maybe a couple times they stayed up late because it was a party, or maybe they went to sleep and went into their room and didn't really go to sleep. I never noticed a problem like that, but it was a reason to criticize me. Now, when June died, none of that was even a question. I just haven't felt like being social. People tried to get me to go to some things and go to parties and stuff, and I did a couple things, and it just didn't work out. By the time I came to Maine, I realized, yeah, it's sort of PTSD thing, but I don't like crowds of people. I didn't like that. Now, the last year that I've been at this place, I've started to feel a lot better. Like, yeah, get out of the house. Let's do something because, hey, see what it's like. And I think I'm getting over because I have a base that I can appreciate. I'm getting over the issues of being around groups. Now, it's a funny thing at a tourist spot, I'll notice a lot of dads that are walking around with two girls that are about 3 or 4 years apart, and it's hard, but you know, it hurts to not like. I mean, I think that's a sweet situation. Why, that's cute. So, but it has hurt me in the recent past. So, I feel a lot better about that kind of emotional response. It's been a while. It's taken a while. However, I have no desire to be more social, right? Like, I'm working so hard that there's family things because I'm living around my wife's family. My own family isn't too far south of here, and I go down there. I want to have a full engagement with that. socialization with my family, and even that is hard to find time for. I have no regrets of other, since I've moved to Maine, I've not tried to make any, local friends or anything. And I work at home. I go out for utilitarian purposes, and at that rate, it would be a long time before I have a non-familial friend. And that'd be fine. As far as I'm concerned, becoming a hermit is an ideal goal. And luckily, I'm married and with a stepson, and they can go out and have social contact and tell me what the world's like. That would be great. Sounds like paradise. Um, so I could understand that might sound or be socially retarded compared to what most or the normal social desire stratus is. Um, so, you know, part of the point is being retarded is okay. So you're slow on some curve. You're probably faster on another, right? As far as I know, people that are slower on the abstract knowledge curve of the IQ are faster on the how to be happy and not be an asshole curve, or are not all of them, but I'm saying the ones that figure things out. There's things they figure out better because they don't have to worry about the thing that the supposedly more superior person had to figure out. And that I'm probably am dysfunctional. I've never said otherwise. I argued with my dad years ago too, and he would argue about that. It's like, well, but you're this way, and I'm like, dude, I've never argued that I'm not that way. That is what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It could be why we're talking, why I'm taking part in us talking about this stuff. Yeah, I have things I want to figure out. Why do you think that is? Probably because I have things I want to figure out. Why do you want to figure shit out? Anyway, yeah, social retardation. I highly recommend it.